right, so listen to this. Today, we're going deep on a case that's basically got its own psychology degree, the Menendez Brothers.
The Menendez Brothers.
Now, I know what you're thinking, not another Menendez podcast. But you sent me way more than just headlines for this one. You've got articles, old forum debates, the works you're looking for, the why here, right?
It's a fascinating why, that's for sure.
Why this case? Out of all of them, why did this one blow up? What does it say about, well, us? And that, my friend, is exactly where we're headed.
Because with the Menendez case, that why is like, I don't know, a hall of mirrors or something. Every time you think you got a handle on it, you just find something even more complex staring back.
Okay, so let's rewind that tape for a sec. 1989, picture it. The heart of Beverly Hills.
Oh, I know Beverly Hills.
Sunshine, palm trees.
Don't forget those mansions.
Right, mansions you only see in movies.
Practically smell the money from here, you know.
We're talking the kind of wealth most people only dream about. And the Menendez family, they were living that dream, weren't they?
Jose Menendez, self-made millionaire, had that whole rags to riches story. Clawed his way to the top of the entertainment industry, no less. His wife, Kitty, she was all about their sons Lyle and Erik. Every advantage money could buy, every opportunity, you name it. From the outside looking in, it was picture perfect. Almost too perfect, if you know what I mean.
And this is where that picture gets real messed up. August 20th, 1989, that facade they had, shattered. Set the scene for us. What did the police walk into that night?
All right, imagine this. You're a cop, right? You get a call disturbance, something like that. But it's this neighborhood where even the dogs probably have trust funds. You walk into this sprawling mansion, and it's like a scene straight out of a horror movie, only it's playing out in this Beverly Hills postcard, you know?
Talk about a contrast.
Jose Menendez is found, shot multiple times. Once, point blank. He was just watching TV, completely caught off guard. Kitty was in the hallway, also shot multiple times. She tried to run. The sheer brutality of it, the overkill, it wasn't just shocking, it felt personal.
And this is where that psychology angle you were asking about comes into play. Because at first glance, you'd think mob hit, right? Wrong place, wrong time, something like that.
Especially in '89, given Jose's connections, mob hit is definitely where your head goes.
Right. It seems like the obvious answer.
But then you factor in how Lyle and Erik are acting after the murders, and things take a hard left.
We're talking about that shopping spree, right? The infamous one.
Oh, tell me about it.
Everyone else is devastated, grieving, and these guys are out buying designer everything, cars, watches, the whole 9 yards.
Like they won the lottery,
Yeah.
not lost their parents.
Exactly.
That kind of behavior on top of some holes in their alibis that were popping up. Let's just say people were starting to wonder. But the real earthquake, that hit when Erik, eaten alive by guilt, spilled everything to his psychologist.
Wait a minute, hold up. The psychologist was recording their sessions.
Dr. Oziel.
Is that like a thing?
It's a whole other can of worms, ethically speaking. They're still debating those tapes today.
Can't imagine why.
But one thing's for sure, they flipped the entire case on its head.
So up until then, they thought it was the mob.
Erik's confession, he named himself and Lyle. Boom, game changer. It wasn't a question who anymore, it became why.
And that's where the real deep dive begins, doesn't it? Goes from a potential mob hit in a city that's all about appearances
Yeah.
to, well, the possibility of something really dark hiding in plain sight. So what was their reason? What did the brothers claim made them do something so unthinkable?
One word, abuse. Their entire defense was built on it, years of alleged horror at the hands of their father. Physical, emotional, they even claimed sexual abuse. They painted Jose Menendez as this tyrant, controlling their every move.
And Kitty, where does she fit into all of this?
They claimed she was complicit, either taking part in the abuse or turning a blind eye to it. The picture they painted of her, it was a woman battling her own demons, addiction, mental instability. Ultimately, they said she was either unable or unwilling to protect them from their father's cruelty.
So we've got this image of two boys trapped, right, in this gilded cage of wealth and privilege, but living in absolute terror. Did they claim they planned it, or was it more like an act of desperation, snapping under pressure?
Their defense was that they snapped. That on that night, they genuinely believed Jose was going to kill them. That after years of this torment, they acted out of pure, primal self-preservation.
And this is where it gets so fascinating, especially for you, with your interest in the psychology of it all, the wealth, the crime. We're not talking about some rough neighborhood with limited options. This is Beverly Hills. Did they claim they had no other way out?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And it's a question that really put the whole legal system, not to mention everyone watching the case unfold, in a tough spot.
Because it really does make you think immense wealth, privilege,
Bro.
yet they claim to be completely powerless.
They claimed they were trapped, basically. Emotionally, financially, you name it. They said Jose held all the cards.
Yeah.
Money, who they could be friends with, what they studied, everything under his thumb. That was their story.
So did they have anything to back that up? Witnesses, medical records, anything concrete at all?
Oh, they definitely tried to back it up. Family, friends, therapists who treated them before. They were all dragged into court.
Sounds messy.
And some of them, they did describe the Menendez home as, well, let's just say it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Jose as a father. Strict, overbearing, those words definitely came up.
But did it go as far as the systematic abuse the brothers were claiming?
That's where it gets murky.
You know, this is making me think about those forum discussions you sent over. Public opinion was all over the place with this case, wasn't it?
Absolutely, completely divided.
It's almost like the whole thing tapped into this fear we all have, you know?
Right.
What goes on behind closed doors, especially in those families that seem to have it all.
Especially back then. This was like peak lifestyles of the rich and famous era. And the fact that it went to trial, not once, but twice.
Wait, really? 2 trials?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember that.
First one, separate juries for each brother mistrial. Hung jury.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
A hung jury in a case this big? Talk about a cliffhanger.
The media had a field day, let me tell you.
So what happened in the second trial? Anything change?
The judge, he made a pretty controversial decision.
What was that?
Those tapes of Erik confessing to Dr. Ozio, the ones we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
admissible as evidence.
Whoa. So the jury got to hear Erik's confession with their own ears. That's huge.
The prosecution, they were ecstatic. They called it their smoking gun, said it proved right then and there that the brothers were motivated by greed, not fear.
Interesting, because that spending spree right after the murders, that doesn't exactly scream, we were terrified for our lives, does it?
Their words exactly. They were celebrating their payday, not escaping a nightmare.
So which was it? Terrified young men, driven to do the unthinkable, or cold-blooded killers, motivated by money and greed.
It was a media frenzy, let me tell you.
I can only imagine. Did it seem like there was any consensus, or was everyone just as torn as the jury in that first trial?
This case had it all. Wealth, privilege, brutal violence. And you throw in those accusations of abuse, people ate it up. It was impossible to ignore.
So true.
Some people, they heard those brothers' story and they believed them, no question. They saw them as victims, pushed too far, finally breaking free.
It's easy to see how someone could come to that conclusion.
Then you have the other side. They saw spoiled rich kids, thought they could buy their way out of anything, even murder.
2 completely different ways of looking at the same events. It's incredible how our own experiences can shape how we see things, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so with public opinion split right down the middle, what was the verdict in the second trial?
Guilty, both of them.
Wow.
Lyle and Erik Menendez,
Yeah.
convicted of first-degree murder. Life in prison, no parole.
Life in prison, no parole. That's a heavy sentence. But even with the guilty verdict, it still feels like this case was about so much more than just the crime itself. You know, it really, you said it before, this case, it was like opening up Pandora's box. We're talking about wealth, privilege, and then that question that always seems to be lurking in the background, is justice truly blind?
It's the question, isn't it?
Because it's not like those things don't exist in every trial, right? But this one...
And you can't forget about the media, especially with this case.
Oh, absolutely.
You had this perfect storm brewing money, media, and murder. It was like a reality show before reality TV was even a thing.
Everyone glued to their screens waiting for the latest update.
Exactly.
Which, again, is something I find so interesting about your take on this whole thing.
Oh.
You're not just asking about what happened, it's the why behind it all that seems to get you going, you know?
I just think it's fascinating how a case like this can capture the public imagination. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this one, it wasn't just debate, it was full-blown obsession.
Total obsession.
But why? That's the thing I keep coming back to. We've had other high-profile trials, celebrity scandals, you name it. But the Menendez brothers, it was like, this case hit a nerve, struck a chord with something deeper.
Because it messed with what we thought we knew, right?
What do you mean?
Think about it. You've got this picture-perfect family living in a Beverly Hills mansion, the American dream, the whole 9 yards.
And then, boom, their kids gunned them down.
But it wasn't just the murder. It was the why behind it.
The abuse allegations.
Exactly. Suddenly, you're forced to confront this really uncomfortable truth. Abuse doesn't care about your zip code.
It could be happening anywhere, to anyone.
Behind closed doors, no matter how grand those doors might seem from the outside.
It's like you said, it shattered this illusion we have that somehow wealth makes you immune to the worst parts of life.
And I think that's what really got people talking, you know?
Yeah.
Made them question everything. Could someone they knew be hiding a secret like that? Were they misjudging a family because of how they looked on paper?
And for you, listening right now, that's where the real psychology of it all kicks in, doesn't it? It wasn't just about legal guilt or innocence anymore. It became this much bigger conversation about the scars abuse leaves behind, the impact of trauma, how it can warp your sense of reality.
It forces you to consider that maybe, just maybe, there are more shades of gray than black and white.
Which is never easy, right? Especially when you're talking about something as serious as murder.
We like easy answers, but the Menendez case, that wasn't about easy answers.
So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway after a deep dive like this?
If you ask me, sometimes the most important thing you learn isn't the answer to the question. It's learning to live with the fact that some questions, they just don't have easy answers.
And that's okay to not have all the answers.
It's uncomfortable, sure, but sometimes it's the only way to really understand something.
You know, I keep thinking about something else you said earlier. The Menendez case was like a Rorschach test.
Yeah.
People saw what they wanted to see, interpreted the facts to fit their own worldview.
Isn't that just human nature, though? We all bring our own baggage to the table.
Makes you wonder, if the same trial happened today, in the age of social media, would anything be different? Or would we just be even more divided?
No, that's a question I'll leave for you to ponder.
Lyle and Erik Menendez, they might be behind bars, but their story, that's still out there, making us question everything. Family, justice, what it means to be human, it's all there.
And that's why we do this, right?
Yeah.
To dig a little deeper, even when it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you something to think about, maybe even sparked some conversations of your own. Until next time.